the ID number, and basically just the ID card or a copy of it. And also you could have their phone number. Yeah, I think those two documents are the main ones that you'd have, because, once you have the ID, it would be harder for them to basically violate the terms of agreement. Then there's also the principle of storage limitation, which is you shouldn't keep the data for too long. So once they've exited your premises, you should basically anonymize the data or get rid of it completely.
Welcome to African Real Estate TV. My name is Jael Care, and as always, we are having conversations to do with real estate. And in this conversation, we have someone who has been on our platform before. We will link that video in the description box of this conversation. He is an advocate of the High Court. Karibu sana.
Asante, thank you so much for having me.
Please introduce yourself a little bit.
So I'm Nigel Ngugi. I'm an advocate of the High Court. I work in the public sector. Yeah, and I'm interested in property and conveyancing, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you for making the time for us. And the conversation we're going to have today is about Airbnbs. As we know, we've had a lot of conversations surrounding that in light of the recent events that have happened, which includes the murder of some women, which occurred in this Airbnb. So it only raises the interest of understanding the whole dynamic of having an Airbnb, hosting one, and as an individual who goes to visit or utilize these facilities, what are the safety measures that I have as an individual, and basically just the conversation will surround all that. So first things first, yes, in light of the recent happenings, the very last occurrence was where the murder happened in this Airbnb, and then Airbnb, the main company, came out and said that they have no idea who these people are, and they are not registered by them. This raises the question, how is the licensing process of an Airbnb and what is required? Because it looks like a lucrative space for anyone who wants to invest in real estate, to just, come up and put their house into becoming an Airbnb if they're not around, or just becoming a host. So what is the licensing processes, and what is one supposed to do to ensure that they do it right?
Oh, okay. So for being a host or under Airbnb, there's a licensing process that you have to undergo. And this is regulated by the Kenya Tourism and Regulation Authority, which released a circular in 2021, basically requiring all hosts to register and get a license from them. So you get the license basically just through an application, and there's an annual fee, which is 26,000. And then there's the initial application fee, which is 1,000. And it's pertinent that you get the licensing, because if failure to do so attracts penalties. For instance, if you failure to get the license, it amounts to an offense under the Tourism Act of 2011, and you are liable to a fine of 100,000. Yeah, and or a jail term of 18 months. So if you're not registered, you may be liable to pay 100,000 because of that, or a jail term of 2 years. Yeah,
that is quite something. Which also makes me wonder, maybe is that the reason why most people do not end up registering? Because then first of all, there's an annual fee. So
exactly.
Yeah, because also then if they are registered and then they fail to adhere to that, then there's a penalty for that.
Yeah, and then also registration can also bring matters of taxes. Yeah, once you're a registered host, you'll be taxed. So I guess that's one of the reasons people tend to evade it.
Yeah.
Though if you're caught on the wrong side of it, it's very dangerous.
how dangerous can it be once you're not registered and then you say you're an Airbnb space? What are the penalties for someone who is not registered, but they claim that they are?
So in that, I think the penalties will be the same. What can be enforced against you is the fine of 100,000, or you could serve a jail term of 2 years. And the thing about it is you don't know when the Kenya Tourism Authority maybe they could even pose as a client, and then from there they realize that you don't have the license, and you'll be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, pretty much like how the Kanjo people go around and end up noticing which businesses don't have the licenses required for them to run. I think
so you can never really know when they'll get you. So it would be better just to register and to pay the initial application fee of 1,000 and then the 26,000 every year.
You mentioned about the tax obligations that one will be required to undertake once they are registered. Could you cover that?
Yeah. So for the taxes, if you're a limited company, you'd have to pay 16% VAT. And if you're just a regular host, you may have to pay 1% digital service tax. Basically, it's just digital service tax. It's a tax for, if you're using a digital service, whatever income you get, the government is entitled to deduct from that. So it also runs on any online platform that you're using to generate income could fall under that. So since you're using Airbnb, which is an online platform, that's how you're getting your clients primarily, you could be charged tax.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. In line with the documentations and registrations that are needed for someone to host an Airbnb, as an individual or a company that is affiliated with Airbnb, are they required to be insured? Are they supposed to have an insurance cover? Or it's just something that an individual may decide to do it for their own sake?
Yeah, for that, it's not a requirement to have insurance, but it's highly, highly recommended, because in case of any liabilities that happen, for instance, a fire that breaks out in the house, or any breakages and stuff that could happen to your property, if you have that insurance, Airbnb will cover you. But if you don't have the insurance, you'd have to pay it out of your own pocket. So it's advisable to have an insurance cover. And the good thing is Airbnb offers insurance covers. So you just select which one would work for you, the policy that would work for you best. And the benefits of having an insurance is it covers things like if your guest gets injured, like bodily harm to your guests, damage or theft of property at your Airbnb, and then damage caused to common areas like buildings or nearby properties. So if you have an insurance cover, it will cover such damages caused by your clients. Yeah, so the best thing you could do is look for a package that would, of course, fit your pocket, and basically your kind of clients. If you have long-term companies, you may not need such a stringent insurance cover as opposed to you're doing one night stays, because one night stays would be, the risk is higher because you don't know these people really. They're not a whole company, so chances of them breaking stuff or destroying your Airbnb would be higher. So in such a case, you'd get a more fixed insurance that would cover a wider range of things. If you're on Airbnb and you're hosting companies, the best thing you could do is have a lease agreement with them. And in that lease, you put in, you have basically just have a checklist of everything that's in the house. Literally, if you have five plates, 5 cups, like you just list it out and they tick on it. And then at the end of their checkout, at the end of their stay, because this will usually be long-term stays, you just go through it, and if anything is broken, they are meant to compensate you because it will be in the lease agreement.
Yeah.
But for short stays, you can't really. It's let's say if it's one night, you can't make someone sign a
Do
whole
a
lease
whole
agreement. Yeah,
list.
most people will be. Yeah, most people will be again. They'll be hesitant.
That's
Yeah,
true.
but it's good to have an insurance. Yeah.
Then it makes sense, and this is my bias for anyone. If they're intending to do an Airbnb, then they should have a stipulated amount of days that they expect their guests to come in. But then that also limits the amount of income they may get from the one night stays. But then it's entirely upon people, and people may have their own preferences. You mentioned about the lease agreement, which requires, in this case, also titles, stipulates the checklist, that the things that are in your house. But also there's something that came up in light of what happened, the murders, that there is no clear detail of the information of these individuals who are coming to stay in your apartment, house, wherever it is. So are there any privacy laws with regards to how much information is too much information, and what is required for someone to, what information should someone require their guests to give?
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. That's a very good question in light of the data protection laws and the regulations that have really been enforced of late. So as a guest, as a host, you have a right to have the ID of your guest. So the guest should give you the ID number, and basically just the ID card or a copy of it. And also you could have their phone number. Yeah, I think those two documents are the main ones that you'd have, because once you have the ID, it would be harder for them to basically violate the terms of agreement. But also, in regards to the same, there's also a limit to how much information you can collect, which is regulated by the principles of data protection. So for instance, there's a principle of data minimization, which basically talks about the amount of data you collect from a data subject. In this case, the client is a data subject, should be minimal, just to serve a certain purpose. So if you shouldn't collect data on a wide range of things that are not touching on why you're actually collecting the data. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you
so
are.
It should be minimized. Yeah, so don't collect data that doesn't pertain to the stay.
For example, how many children do you have?
Yeah, all that is unnecessary. You just need the specifics for that stay, like the ID, the phone number. Yeah, I think those are the main ones that you may have to give out as a client. Then there's also the principle of storage limitation, which is you shouldn't keep the data for too long. So once they've exited your premises, you should basically anonymize the data or get rid of it completely. It's one of the principles.
So how long is too long, and how long does it take for the data to still be valid? Like if I'm hosting an Airbnb, how long should I hold the data for my clients?
Yeah. Okay, there's no set amount of days, but I think we just use a reasonable man test, in that once the stay is over and you guys have cleared, you've checked everything is okay, they've left your house the way you gave it to them, then at that point your business is done. There's no claims or anything, so you should just get rid of their data.
What if something happens? What if you notice something went amiss way after? What happens then?
That wouldn't be quite tricky, but the best thing you'd have done was just to check. You remember what I was talking about? Checking if everything in the house is okay before they can check out. Like if all your stuff is there, just having a simple checklist. Because in an Airbnb, you won't have you just have the basic amenities.
Yeah.
So if you can ensure that all your basic amenities are still intact, then I think that would be okay. But in the instance that you realize later, then it would have been good to at least have the their data in some kind of way. But in most cases, in the world we live in right now, you'll still have their number.
Getting rid of the data means I am essentially storing it online. That makes it easier. But most of us, most of the spaces that we have been in and we have seen, they do it manually. So chances are I still have the book and I still have the information of this individual.
Yeah, that's true. And also another thing on just storing people's data, it's you could be very easily implicated in data breach. For instance, you're a host and your client comes in and they leave, let's say they're a high profile person, so they leave their ID number and their phone number, and then later on they start getting strange phone calls. You know what happens, like you get those calls from people in prison. So if the guy is able to trace that to, that's the only place he's given out his actual details in the past few days, that could also have a bad implication on you, because you have a duty to store that data safely. So that data should only be used for the purpose of the stay. So if the data is sold or given to people to try and get money from them, that would now come back to you, because you're the data controller. You're the one who got the data from the subject.
I hear you, and this is my mind running. But I'm just thinking, because you just mentioned about the need for hosts to get rid of this information. After a number of days, months, it's not stipulated. But then I'm thinking maybe it should be stipulated so that it can guide people in this sense. For example, the murder that happened in Roysambu, and then this person ran away. What if he went to another Airbnb, but they're not sure this is the person? After the murder scene, he went and stayed at your space and you didn't know. So of course you took his information as required. And after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because how long has it been? Almost a month now. So if someone is working with 30 days, they'll get rid of the information. But what if the police realize he went through your space? Will it have an issue with you, or it will just be, okay, you followed what you needed to follow and it's just unfortunate?
In that case, I strongly do believe, as a host, as long as you followed all the right procedures, you got their details, you ensured you got all their details, and I don't think you'll be implicated in any way just because they took a house at your place, if you did it the right way. Like as long as there can't be a link between you and the initial crime, that the initial murder that he did. If he was to come and stay in your place and you honestly, genuinely did not know that was a person, which happens. I mean, not everyone knows the person in question.
Of course.
I think you'd be able to, you may be called in to give evidence or to testify, but I think you'd be okay. You didn't be implicated just on the face of it.